Matty T and Robbie C, Footy Roundup, the place to be. Matt Tidcombe and Rob Serjanik here with you. Footy Roundup, I believe, episode 25 now, Matt. We keep reaching bigger and bigger milestones.
Yeah, I mean, we're continuing to chase the dream, as they say, right?
Doing what we're doing. First half of today's show will be covering the MLS situation, as well as the Champions League and Europa League, where we're at with those tournaments as we speak. Second half, we'll be going through, as per usual with us, the Big Four leagues and our Studs and Duds segment. Matt, right off the beginning here, as has kind of become our custom, I guess, give us a quick rundown of MLS news.
So the season is supposed to start this weekend, and a key emphasis on the word supposed to. For those who aren't quite aware, because it hasn't really gathered a lot of mainstream attention like the NFL, NHL, NBA lockouts have in recent years.
Well, I guess all the news is on the Leafs tank job. That's really important.
It seems that way right now. I mean, that's all that seems to dominate the sport headlines.
Olli Jokinen was traded, so who cares about the deadline?
Exactly, right? 6 games, whatever it was. Like, who cares? Back to MLS. Basically, the season's supposed to start Friday. LA, the champions, are have their home opener, and the problem is there might not be a game because there's a lockout coming. Basically, the problem here is that the big hold up here is the players want genuine free agency. Free agency like we see kind of in Europe for soccer players. When they're released from a team, they're free to sign with whoever they want.
Even on whatever terms they want.
Exactly, right. Even some of the other big pro leagues here in North America, there isn't. Baseball, for example, doesn't have genuine free agency until you've been in the league for a number of years. So it's not uncommon, but MLS really... I think it's also important for MLS in the sense that if they want to be taken as a legitimate, serious soccer league, they need to have free agency. You can't have MLS controlling player contracts as they have done in recent years. It's
ironic because for league credibility, you think it would be better to go this route, but they're almost fighting against it still to maintain control.
It's crazy.
It is super strange. I mean, in I guess the most general sense, Matt, it's essentially a player comes to MLS, they're signing a contract through a league and not an individual team, which is something
absurd.
You don't see very often. Is a little bit ludicrous. How that's going to play out, I have no idea. I'm sure you don't either. I mean, we're all hoping that the season will start on time, but I have been reading and hearing the possibility of a couple weeks delay with this.
It's seen that a couple of weeks might be the outcome here. I mean, but it's ridiculous. I mean, a couple of players like Hercules Gomez has basically been frozen out because of this rule. Jermaine Jones, when he came back into the league towards the end of last season, his team was chosen through a draw. Like that's
ridiculous.
It's absolutely insane.
He's almost like he's getting drafted.
Exactly, as a guy who's been in Europe and established himself as a good player.
Yeah.
Like, even if you've been in Europe and haven't proven yourself, wherever you've been, you should be able to sign for whoever you want. A club should be able to sign who they want, and players
on
who have been
terms
released
that they want to sign them on
should be able to sign what they want. I mean, Jose Altidore, when he came back to Toronto, it didn't come to fruition in the end, but there was that rumor circulating that because of the way MLS reintroduces players who've been out of the league, that New York were trying to jump over TFC to get into this allocation where they could have signed Altidore, because a couple of teams who were above TFC in this make-believe ranking to some extent didn't want him, and New York were trying to jump ahead. I mean, it's absurd. I don't know. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. Really,
it's something I think we said right off the beginning that it really, really needs to be addressed. And as unfortunate as it would be to miss some of the season, I think it would be for the best interests of the league as a whole to rectify this situation sooner rather than later.
But the other half of this though is MLS is on a roll right now. It's starting to really pick up mainstream. You've got Steven Gerrard, you've got Frank Lampard, David Villa, Landon Donovan's just retired.
Not to mention those snazzy New York City FC kids that we want to see.
There's a lot of snazzy kids this year.
Yeah, they're looking sharp.
Vancouver with
the little mountaintops.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Montreal's is really sharp. TFC have a pretty boring shirt this year, but
it's traditional.
Maybe keeping them simple is
I think
best way to go.
My concern with TFC's kit is it's just so red. It's almost too bright. I would have preferred it, a little bit more darker, a little more maybe almost like a chrome type look. But it's so flashy, in your eyes, which is weird for a traditional kit.
I noticed as well they kept the black away strip. I know you own that jersey. I love it too.
I think that's my favorite TFC kit.
They've kept that straight up as their away kit now.
Smart. It had the little Canadian flags going down.
Yeah, you have to really look close at it. Yeah. Also, one other point about the collective bargaining agreement or whatever it's called. There was one in 2010, and it was signed 5 days before the 2010 season started.
Oh, so we're cutting it a little closer.
So we are cutting closer this time, but I don't know. I mean, it's inexcusable to some extent. But I guess, so on the field stuff.
Yeah, we can't control this, Matty. So let's operate under the premise that
there is stuff going on.
Yeah.
A couple of points. And TFC, they played 2 games this weekend. They lost 2-0 to a New York Red Bulls team. TFC played half-ass team, I guess, probably the way to put it. Some starters, some guys who you would see maybe play every now and then. And then they followed that with a 2-1 win against the under-23 Costa Rica side, where they played pretty much a full-strength team. Giovinco and Altidore scored both goals there. Giovinco scored a really nice goal.
I know it's an under-23.
Doesn't matter, though.
Getting them on the board.
Last game of the preseason as well was a good way to get started. On to Montreal. They were in the Champions League, CONCACAF Champions League. They drew 2-2 with Pachuca, I think is how you say it, a Mexican side. I think it's one of those situations where from the get-go, 2-2 away draw, I'll take that every day, and then they go back to Montreal and, hopefully turn over the second leg. Problem was they were 2-0 up in that game.
Yeah, I think they'll be a little disappointed to drop it, but at the end of the day, 2 away goals and a draw with everything to play for at Montreal, like you said, at the beginning.
It's a good situation to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'd be okay with having gone in there and lost 1-0 or 2-1 and still kept it alive, but they come out with 2 away goals plus a draw. I mean, not to get into, too much of the details of it, let's just say that playing in Mexico is a little bit of a contentious thing at the best of times.
Absolutely.
And it's not an easy situation to go in there and pick up anything. So I give full credit to Montreal for getting something out of this game one way or the other, and they have all to play for back home now. Finally,
Vancouver drew 1-1 with Chicago in another preseason game. Pamadou Ka, who's actually had a really good preseason with the Whitecaps, scored for Vancouver, and Sheldon Winchester scored in the last minute for Chicago to tie that game.
So things rounding into form a little bit for the clubs, provided their actual league goes forward with
exactly.
games.
And obviously, in terms of who they play in the first game of the weekend, in the first game of the season, supposedly TFC are obviously on the road against Vancouver, which is a really intriguing matchup. Kind of like TFC last year going to Seattle, first game of the season, Defoe scoring twice and winning 2-1. Vancouver, another really good team. TFC kind of remodeled again. And
ad nauseum, it seems like.
Obviously, it's a good test for TFC, and obviously they're on the road as well for the first 7 games of the season because of renovations to BMO. So they
tend to be on the road a lot early because of weather too.
That as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, 7 games, you'd have probably 2 home games.
Yeah. Maybe after 4 or 5,
right?
you'd be home.
But yeah, on the road to start the season. I mean, just curious what you think, Rob. 7 away games to start the year in a row.
I think that
I don't know,
you could be pretty sunk by the time those fixtures are done.
Which isn't good for TFC. Especially
in my opinion, if TFC...
the question is, how many points or wins can they pick up on the road?
I think if they could come out of that with 2 wins and 1 or 2 draws, I think you'd be happy.
They can go
2 wins, a draw, and even 4 losses, you're still okay.
2-2-3, 2-3-2, something like that.
Don't outwardly lose more than 4 is what I'm getting at here.
Right, they need to, yeah, exactly. I think if they can win 2 games, draw a couple.
Treading water, finding your form, getting the club comfortable together.
If they go 3 and 4, they need some points though early on because they can't afford to get behind.
I think it's a little scary, Matt, just because of their history of how bad they've been on the road. But at the same time, it is a new team, a new regime. I don't know how much of that carries over with guys who haven't been here before. And it's an old axiom in sports, but a lot of the times, when a team's on the road, they kind of tend to come together and fight and learn each other's tendencies, and it might be a good thing to start away from BMO for a bit too.
Well, and the other thing as well, so many new players, they have no option but to bond.
Yeah.
If you're in Toronto, you can go home and go home with your wife or your girlfriend and do whatever you need to do. Whereas when you're on the road, you have to go to the restaurant with your players. You have to go to train with your players. You have to go to the cinema, to the bar, whatever you want to do.
Even your roommate too.
Even your roommate, exactly, right? And as for Montreal, they're on the road.
I hope you choose me, Matt, if we were on the same team.
I think that's a safe bet. Montreal are on the road to DC United in their first game of the season, so not an easy start for them.
So fingers crossed that this gets settled out. It would be really disappointing to see a loss of any game.
I'm excited for the season. I don't know about you.
I am too.
Obviously, a lot of expectation around TFC, but just in general,
it's becoming the cautious optimism around TFC. But I think what they did in this offseason that we touched on before was mostly positive, and things could go well for them. And I like Vancouver's chances. And Montreal, who knows? It's encouraging the result they picked up away against the tough Mexican side. So maybe they could surprise as well.
Absolutely.
Matt, moving on to Champions League, I guess the big surprise, if you want to call it a surprise, I mean, I guess I tend to kind of pick on Arsenal a little bit, but it was deserved for sure this past week as they dropped 3-1 at home against Monaco in Champions League.
This was a great game. I really enjoyed this game. It was funny because we were saying it's the game we're not overly interested in last week, and turns out it was, Barcelona and Man City was quite good, but Arsenal Monaco had just especially with the result as well.
And the way it happened at the end too, a couple
exactly
times.
Right. So Monaco go 2-0 up. Kongobi, I think is how you say his name, and then obviously Dimitrov Berbatov. We all know his story. And then Oxlade-Chamberlain scores a nice goal in the 90th minute, and you're like, man, that's a massive goal. I think we were texting during this game. We said that's a huge goal because it gives Arsenal something to live on.
Not so much.
No. Ferreira Carrasco went down the other end and made it 3-1 literally 2 minutes later. At third goal, I think the third goal is a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, you think Arsenal's killed, or you give them any chance here?
They have to win 3-0.
Yeah.
They have to win 3-0 in the way. I mean, that's...
Or I guess 3-1 to force an overtime.
Or to win, yeah, exactly. Extra time. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And
I don't see it either. And I think you're right, that late goal. I mean, the end of the game almost had more twists and turns than a John Grisham novel. It was getting a little ridiculous back there with those late strikes.
Even furthermore, like we spoke about injuries for some other teams, like Schalke, not Schalke, who am I thinking of, against Real Madrid. Is it Schalke?
Schalke, I think you're thinking?
Yeah. And how injured they were with Julian Draxler and Farfan and these guys. Monaco were without Jeremy Toulon, who was their captain. He was suspended. Lassina Traore was also out. Ricardo Carvalho, we all know his story, Chelsea, Real Madrid. Gian Moutinho, who's arguably possibly their best player these days, was also missing. I mean,
and even still enough to go away and win 3-1.
And even Ferreira Carrasco, who scored the third goal, wasn't supposed to play, and he kind of came on as a sub and played quite well for 15, 20 minutes and nicked a big away goal towards the end. So, I mean, it's crazy. I mean...
Looks done and dusted for Arsenal,
it does,
doesn't
because, you know, Monaco, if they can get... I'd have to check if Toulon is going to be back for the second leg. But, you know, if they can get him back and maybe Gian Moutinho and add in what they already had with Berbatov and Ferreira Carrasco and a couple of other guys... You know, I think it's done, because Arsenal just every year they always lose in this round.
I told you that they always stumble. It almost doesn't even matter who the competition is, Matt. Like, they were, you know, comfortably, I don't want to say heavily favored, but they were comfortably favored to go through against this Monaco side. If I'm Monaco, I'm shutting up shop next game, and I'm playing for a 0-0, or Arsenal, you want to score once and win 1-0, go ahead.
Kind of like how Inter landed with Celtic. And
exactly. Like, go ahead. If you want, you want to come at us and you nick us for 1, maybe 2 goals, try to get the third. It's not going to happen. Right. Not likelihood. I'd shut up shop and play counter.
It's like Arsenal going to go on ultra attack like we would on FIFA when you're losing late.
Countering with a 6-3-1.
Exactly, right? So, I don't know. Not odd, but great result for Monaco. That's a huge result for them.
Huge result. Moving on to City Barca, that had a few twists and turns as well.
Just a few, right?
Yeah.
Luis Suarez just seems to score whenever he plays in England. Scored a brace in this game, and Barcelona they were a different class. Like that second goal, the one touches all around the box. It's disgusting. It's almost illegal to some extent the way they play around the box, Barcelona. But Aguero gets them back in the game. Midway through the second half. But, I mean, the big talking point about this, Rob, is Joe Hart at the end of the day. Saving that penalty from Lionel Messi, and then Messi misses the header with basically a wide-open goal.
Yeah, it was an interesting call, I guess.
In the last minute as well.
Yeah, Messi got the benefit of the doubt. I personally wasn't too thrilled with the penalty call. I thought it was a little bit soft. I can see why he called it, but I mean, like you said in the end of the game, to call it at that point, Messi scores there. This is basically over.
Well, it would have been 3-1, right? Similar with Monaco Arsenal.
And then you're going back to Barca to win 3-0. Good luck.
Yeah, not happening, right? So, I mean, Man City still have to score twice now. I mean, yeah, they have to score twice, actually, yeah. So 2-0 or 2-1, whatever it takes to either win the leg outright or in extra time. So, I mean, it does set up a good second leg, though, because you have one team who has to attack. They have no other option but to do that now.
Yeah, it forces them to be very proactive and offensive-minded, which I think then opens up a lot of countering possibilities for Barcelona.
Absolutely.
If I'm City, I don't even hesitate. Dzeko, Aguero, both starting for me, no question.
No, I'll probably throw Jovic in there, too.
Yeah, all three? Yeah, you need the goals.
You got to, right? You got to score twice. And, I mean, this is a Barcelona team that does leak goals every now and then.
Yeah, this is a game where it's holding midfielders be damned.
Yeah,
if you're going to go in...
Versus
if you're going to go in and Barca kind of crushes you on the counter, you live with that, but you got to go for it. You can't just play your traditional 4-2-3-1 formation expecting that you're going to pick up a result at Barca.
My final point on this game, the last English side who went to Barcelona needing a result to get through, did it, which was Chelsea. Fernando Torres.
Food for thought from Matty Tidcombe.
Bit of wisdom on you.
Dropping the knowledge. Juve Dortmund, Matt, 2-1 Juventus at home. I guess pretty much a ho-hum result. Good kind result. Of what we both expected. Something like
great
this.
Second leg.
Yeah.
Great second leg. Tevez Morata had the goals for Juve. Marco Reus, the legend, just keeps getting it done for Borussia Dortmund. I don't think there's too much else to say really. I didn't see this game because obviously we were watching Man City, Barcelona. But from the highlights, it looked like the Juve goal, the Dortmund goal was disappointing because Chiellini just randomly fell over almost in the middle of the field, and Marco Reus just ran in and put it past Buffon. But this sets up a really, really intriguing second leg.
Yeah, it's all to play for in this one. It's going to be really tight. And the last one, Matt, Bayern 1, Atletico Madrid 0. Not without a little bit of controversy, as Torres had a goal disallowed. The referee deemed the ball to have gone out of bounds off a corner before he headed it in. I saw the play live. I watched the replay a couple times. The simple fact that I have to watch the replay a few times before I make a verdict on it tells me my instincts that I think the call was wrong. I would have allowed the goal to stand. If in any doubt, in these ties that just mean so much and are generally speaking so close, if you have any doubt about the call, I don't see how you can outwardly say out of bounds for sure, no goal. Admittedly, it was very close, and I can see how someone would make a case that it was out, but I just can't see how you're saying it's definitively out of bounds.
Here's my question. We have goal line technology which runs from post to post, which is great. It's needed. It's been long overdue.
Long overdue.
Frank Lampard against Germany in the World Cup, just saying.
Grapes, meat, sour.
But point still made.
For sure,
true.
Yeah.
But then my question is, why aren't we expanding this down the whole corner line, like down from corner kick to corner kick? There's no.
The cynic in me says maybe it's going to take a little money out of Blatter's pocket to make that happen. But
I'm sorry, Sepp. Instead of 40 million, you're making only 30 million.
Yeah, I'm sure you can survive.
No,
I think after seeing something like this, Matt, these are the types of things that you don't want to ever see happen, but almost need to happen for that.
It has to, because at any level, this is starting to happen. I mean, you watch highlights of lower league games in England. Like my team, for example, Bristol Rovers. We had a game a few weeks ago when this was a problem, and I think it went in our favour in the end, which was great. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is something we're in 2015. There's no reason for this to be an issue still.
It's a simple 15, 20 seconds over at the camera to see, and the instant verdict is done.
It's not even that. Like you just flick the what's on the referee's watch, right? When it's a goal.
Oh, he sees if it's good or not.
Yeah, it'd be no different here, right? So I think there's no reason why there's a delay in this. They have the money, they have the necessity to get it done.
I mean, they're already adding at times absurd amount of injury time, so it's like adding another 20 seconds to make sure you get it right. Does it really matter?
It wouldn't even be that, right?
Yeah.
5 seconds max. I mean, there's no reason for us to be living in society when this is out of the question. I mean, I'm okay on the sidelines if it's a throw and it'd go in. No, that's okay. I mean,
yeah, but when it's it results in a goal,
especially, but also trying to figure out if it's a corner and et cetera, there's no reason for it. For us not to be in this situation.
Yeah,
anymore.
It's deciding ties. I still like Atletico's chances at home, though.
Yeah, I do
only
too.
Down 1-0.
But I mean, Leverkusen, though, I like Leverkusen still.
But that away goal would have been absolutely massive.
It would have been huge. Yeah. Cal Hollingu had the goal for Leverkusen, for those who are interested.
Matty, moving on to the Europa League. I guess a quick run-through of the results that we have there.
Yeah, so Zenit St. Petersburg knocked off PSV. They won 1-0 in the first leg, 3-0 at home. Rondon and Hulk had the goals.
4-0 at aggregate, twice. Pretty comfortable.
I guess the big game to talk about, Rob, is obviously Liverpool and Besiktas.
Yeah, the Besiktas-Liverpool game was great. I watched large portions of it. I mean, I guess notwithstanding the fact that I'm a big Slaven Bilic fan, head coach on Besiktas, coach the Croatian national team, played for them as well. I think he's a very good coach, kind of in the Diego Simeone mold. He's very demonstrative, gets his guys really motivated and committed to the cause. I expect him to be in England for a big club for sure within the next couple of seasons. I mean, he did play at West Ham and he was quite good there as well. Or
at least a bigger European club.
Yeah, he's going to go somewhere big, unquestionably. It was actually a really good game.
It was.
Yeah, Besiktas turned it around, I guess, kind of late-ish. They won 1-0.
70th minute.
Yeah, and then they forced it into penalties where they won 5-4 before Croatian international Dejan Lovren skied his kick, which was not a good kick, but at the same time, how are you justifying a center half taking your fifth penalty?
Every time penalty comes up.
I don't think he's ever scored a goal with his foot for a club team. It's all headers on corners, right?
Every time it comes out, it's something that's always bothered me. Why do the midfielders just run away?
Yeah.
The strikers tend to stand up and take the penalties, but the midfielders just... Where are you? Why are you getting centre halves to take penalty kicks? It was funny though. It's actually one of the first penalty shootouts in a while where everyone just kept scoring.
The goals were amazing.
They were really good finishes.
Like the keepers were, right there on so many of the chances, but the shots were just too good. They couldn't get to them.
Exactly.
They were guessing right a lot, but it wasn't enough.
This is disappointing for Liverpool because I think I said this last week. They were one of the favourites in my opinion to win this tournament. And now
it's Liverpool and Arsenal, Matt. I tell you, and those teams, when they go against other clubs in Europe, there's just something happens that I just don't trust them to pick up results in games they should win. And Arsenal was the same situation. Besiktas and Monaco aren't bad sides, but they're sides they should be beating.
Exactly. I mean, even in the home leg, Liverpool took like an 83rd, 84th minute penalty to win the first leg. So
yeah, it was a struggle there too.
Moving on, Borussia Mönchengladbach lost 3-2 at home to Sevilla and meaning they lost 4-2 on aggregate. Really good game. Zaka and Hazard. Hazard being the younger brother of Eden, who was also
I saw that Hazard. I was for a quick second. I was like,
it's his younger brother.
What happened
I can't remember his first name off the top of my head right now, but it's his younger brother who was also a Chelsea property, but he joined Borussia Mönchengladbach permanently. I think about a week ago, just after this game.
Probably a good move,
which is a great move for him because he's going to be a really good player too. Might not be quite what Eden is, but don't get me wrong, he's going to be a good kid.
If he's 80% of what Eden Hazard is,
he's going to be a very good player, right?
Yeah.
Bacca and Vitolio scored for Sevilla. Kiev knocked off Guingamp, I think.
I'm just happy to see Guingamp out. Nothing against Guingamp. I just don't know who or what that is, and I don't want to see that name in our notes anymore.
All right, perfect.
So I'm happy. Dynamo Kiev, thank you.
Villarreal knocked off Salzburg 5-2 on aggregate. Tottenham, another English side, they are out. Awful week for your English European teams. They lost 2-0 away at Fiorentina.
That's disappointing for Tottenham. I think we both thought that would be tighter and maybe a penalty or extra time situation, especially after the first leg.
Gomez and Salah had the 2 goals. Salah has been really, really good for Fiorentina since leaving Chelsea on loan as part of the Quadrado deal. I'm going to have to check in my notes for the second half, Rob, but there was a 2-on-0 for Tottenham, who the 2 players were. And they tried to 2-0 on the goalie, tried to lay it to the other player, and just kicked it into the goalkeeper. It
absurd.
Was absolutely absurd. I'm going to have to quickly check my notes for the second half. I'll get back to you on who those 2 guys were. Inter Milan knocked off Celtic, I think we mentioned quickly earlier. They won 1-0, 4-3 on aggregate.
Matty, I told you that was a result I was expecting. After they went into Celtic and got the 3-3, the plethora of away goals kind of gives you that safety net that I said, an Inter 0-0 here wouldn't surprise me. It looked like they set up shop for that, but they still nicked it late, which, admittedly, if Celtic found a way to nick it late, then they would have been out. So, a huge result for Inter Milan.
Yeah, Freddie Guarín scored the goal in the 88th minute. Kind of like what... It's one of those things, though, 1-0, it looks tight, and we didn't get to see this game.
Yeah.
But, I'm sure it was, but 88th minute, if Celtic had scored that goal...
They would have stolen it at the end.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So it's a really fine line you walk on in these situations. Ajax knocked off Legia Warsaw 4-0 on aggregate, 3-0 on the second leg. Torino, maybe one of the better games of the... overall ties, both legs. Torino won 3-2 away at Athletic Bilbao, and 5-4 on aggregates. So
very close tie.
Really good game overall. Lopez, Darmian, and Quagliara had the goals for Torino. Club Brugge knocked off Aalborg 6-1 on aggregate. See you later.
Similar fashion, I guess, Everton over. I don't care about the young boys.
No big deal. Had 5 goals.
Talking about the young stars.
Lukaku had 5 goals in these 2 legs. Had 2 on the second leg when they won 3-1. Morales had the other goal for Everton. I think we'll leave the Roma game to last because there's something else we need to talk about from that game. Napoli beat Trabzonspor 1-0. De Guzman, one of the brothers of the other De Guzman, the Canadian international, had the goal. Olympiacos knocked off Dnipro. Olympiacos drew 2-2 of Dnipro, lost 4-2 on aggregate. And Wolfsburg drew 0-0 away with Sporting Lisbon, but they won the first leg 2-0, so they went away through 2-0 obviously. Bas Dost, no goals for him in this game anyway.
Oh, he's trending down for sure.
But yeah, right. But back to the Roma game. 1-1 was the first leg, as we know, but the second leg Roma won 2-1. Lalic and Gervinho had the goals for Roma, but this game was marred with a 20-minute suspension.
Couple of stoppages, actually.
20-minute suspension. Taverde was sent off for a foul, and the Feyenoord fans didn't like it. And the game was suspended because of violence and threats. And then there was also the fact that we're still somehow dealing with racism in football today.
Yeah, it's just absurd that it just continues. I can't see it stopping, Matt. I mean, FIFA, it's always, and UEFA too, it always seems to be slap on the wrist penalties for these types of things. You mentioned what you saw, I think it was Chelsea when the guy was trying to get on the train in the racist
Yeah, against PSG, yeah.
It happens not constantly, but I mean regularly enough that it's clearly a little bit of a pandemic in world football, unfortunately.
It's disgusting. It's completely uncalled for. But what makes it even odd is that Gervinho was obviously a black man, which is what it is. But then the Feyenoord fans are making racist abuse towards him. But then Feyenoord have their own coloured players. It doesn't make sense.
They're not even consistent in their racism.
Exactly.
It's like if they help their own team or their own interests, then they kind of look the other way.
It's not like any of these Russian players, some of these Russian clubs where they literally have no black players, and which is awful nonetheless. But it's really odd how they're abusing this guy for being black on the opposing team, but their own black guys are perfectly acceptable. It's disgusting. It's unnecessary. There's no place for it in 2015. I mean, FIFA can keep doing all of this, say no to racism.
Oh, a little $10,000 dollar slap on the fine.
Is nothing. You need to be fined. 10 million probably isn't enough. I mean, they should, European
maybe
ban.
losing points. Like you've seen some empty stadiums, but that doesn't do
it doesn't
either.
do enough. Yeah. I mean, when these clubs are making millions and millions of dollars, what's one home game where they might get 25,000 in?
To the actual game itself, though, Matt, I think
really
it's fair to say that it turned on that red card, in my opinion.
It did. Yeah, you're right. I mean, anytime a team goes down to 10
I mean,
men,
Feyenoord did, I think, score after the red
they
card
did,
as well,
but then Jorginho went down
Yeah.
and basically retook the lead almost
Which is,
immediately,
I guess, maybe a little bit of karmic justice, considering he was, I guess, the guy primarily racially abused in the
exactly.
game.
It was a nice, I don't know, middle finger, I guess, to the Feyenoord fans for that.
So it sets up, you want to run through one more thing?
Yeah, one more thing. It was Soldado who broke through on a 2-on-0, and instead of shooting, tried to pass. This is in the Spurs game. We were just cleaning that up.
I was just going to say, Matt, a quick look at the draw, which has also been completed, and your thoughts. Everton-Kiev, I think, will be a close game. I like Everton, though.
Yeah, I do too. I like Everton in that matchup. There's a couple of other really good games. Zenit St. Petersburg against Torino. I think maybe the tie we were agreeing before we went on the air was Wolfsburg and Inter Milan is a fantastic tie.
Then there's actually like two kind of, I guess, like domestic ties, if you will. Villarreal, Sevilla, and Fiorentina, Roma, which should be pretty solid games.
Both really good games. Obviously, they're very familiar with each other. Napoli, Dynamo Moscow, Club Brugge, Besiktas, and the final game is Dnipro against Ajax. So there's a couple of really interesting games. Fiorentina, Roma, Villarreal, Wolfsburg, Inter for sure. Napoli, Dynamo Moscow has got a good ring to it. Zenit Torino has too. Some other games, not maybe as much interest, like Club Brugge, Besiktas, for example.
I like Besiktas' chances to get through after what they did to Liverpool facing Bruges. I think they have a really good
I would
chance
say Besiktas would probably be a favourite there, especially with the way leg first, if they can get a decent result and move on.
Yeah, Wolfsburg Inter though, that one.
That's a cracking lineup. It's a
borderline Champions League game not too long ago.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think even next year, Wolfsburg are going to be in the Champions League next year. Inter Milan aren't going to make it because of their club position. But
yeah, the struggles of them and AC Milan, sad to see. You'd hope that they'd be able to turn that around soon.
Yep.
That's it for the first half. We'll be back in the second half, going through the big four leagues and our studs and duds.